Welcome back, everyone, to Series 2 of Life Sci AI, the podcast series. Thankfully, we've been commissioned for a second series, so we're back after a successful first series. We wanted to look back at any of the podcasts for the first series. They're all still on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and all the episodes are on video format on our website as well. But in the next series, we're going to try and see as many different applications of both AI, but software and the digital health market as well, and try and broaden as many of horizons as possible. And to kick it off, we've got someone who is a bit of a thought leader. Some would say an influencer, let's say now, across the industry within surgical robotics. And surgical robotics plays a big part in medical devices. It has a proud history, but a young history, let's say. And I'm proud to have Lucien Blondel, who's the co-founder and CTO of Quantum Surgical, joining me today. Quantum are a surgical robotics company, a startup in Montpellier in France. But I'll pass over to you, Lucien. Thank you for joining. And I'm sure you can give a bit more of an outline on yourself and what Quantum look at doing.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me in this second series of the podcast from Cyprus. So, yes, I have a 20+ years experience in surgical robotics in both startups and big corporate companies environments, and I've been fortunate to work in this field that has been evolving very much the last 2 decades, and I've been working in knee, brain, spine, interventional radiology, and right now in the liver cancer areas. And so we will maybe talk a little bit more about my background and experience later. For Quantum Surgical, we are a 80 people startup company based in Montpellier, south of France, and we are developing the Epione robotic platform that we intend to provide to the European, US, and China market very soon to help radiologists to plan, to assess, to guide needle placement for percutaneous liver ablation procedures. So we are very excited to start this robotics journey in interventional oncology, a field in which there is not that many people playing, and that's still a lot of unmet needs for end users to be addressed with robotics software and other technologies.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we'll go into the unmet needs and how many use cases potentially there were when you were considering what to look at Quantum in a short while. But looking at your general story and path to found Quantum Surgical, you said you've been part of big businesses and smaller startups as well. So I guess just from a founder point of view or a business leader point of view, what's the difference what are the major differences that you see? Because we know from like an engineer's point of view or a research point of view, the differences, but when you're leading these companies or leading different business units, and you worked in at GE, for example, what are the major differences that you find between the two?
So between startups and big corporates, I mean, these are really two different worlds, and I think I believe the two are complementary. I mean, it's an ecosystem in which startups and big corporates feed one another with technologies, with IP, and then with distribution channels, marketing, sales, manufacturing, supply chain, stuff like that. So what is really different on the product development side and the regulatory side and quality, which are my strong areas of expertise, is that in a startup, it's you take a lot of risks every day, and you do a lot of a decision. You have to do a lot of decision on product development strategies, quality, implementation, regulatory strategies, regulatory pathways, choices, and you have to be very agile. You have to be very quick, and you have to take a risk. You have to measure the risk each time, and then you have to take a decision and then move forward and adjust depending on what happens with what you did, and that's what we do. Sometimes you choose a technology, and then 6 months later you say, okay, that's not the right one. Let's switch the technology, go over from scratch, and still have the same purpose and the same target deadline, which is obviously not easy. So this is the startup life. In big corporate, I mean, they tend to be, and it's really normal to be much more risk adverse, and the decision making process is much more complex because you have to involve a lot of expert people, stakeholders in all those areas that are related to the product, which are engineering, marketing, manufacturing, servicing, quality, regulatory, clinical, and you have to bring all those people to the table and agree on the decision. So that requires a lot more efforts than within a small startup where you can just bring all those four people around the table and then
Mm.
you decide and you move on. And the same kind of decision can take weeks, if not months, in a corporate environment, and that's I mean that's not wrong to say. It's just that
Yeah.
that's the process, and that's how it works, and that's how
Yeah.
they made a product with quality and efficiency.
Yeah. Okay. And which one do you think harnesses development better then?
Well, I would say there is, yeah, there is no better. I mean, depending on what you are looking for. If you are looking
Yeah.
for innovation, then the startup is much more adapted to deliver innovation. But when you are looking at delivering a product such as the one we developed at GE for hybrid ORs, then you want to make sure that the product in the next 10 years will be still manufactured, serviced, and post-market issues will be properly handled. And this takes time. This takes a lot of preparation and a lot of people to be involved, a lot of work. And I've seen that, and it's a great work, great people, but it takes more time. So it's I mean it's two different objectives that
Mm.
we try to achieve there. And in the startup is more of like the time to market and get the early adopters, and then the big corporates are more focused on, yeah, okay, you have a technology, you have already maybe 100 units on the field, it's been clinically proven, you have clinical evidence, let's make it a worldwide product. And then
Yeah.
I mean the challenge is supply chain,
Yeah. 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 Different
distribution, and
challenges. Yeah.
marketing. Yeah.
So what are your thoughts then on incubators? Because there's a few bigger corporates in medical devices for sure that have sort of standalone research facilities or incubators. There's some in my mind thinking in the Nordics that spring to mind for me. So what are your thoughts on those? Do you know any really successful ones, and do they fit in well with bridging that gap potentially, that the negative side of, not the negative, but the drawbacks of early innovation for big corporates?
Yeah, I think all in all, it's a great idea. I do not know very much concrete examples of companies, but I mean that's probably the one way to do this, to have a dedicated startup environment, but backed up with the
Yeah.
expertise of a big corporate company, and definitely that enables also the big company to keep an eye on what's going on, what's going to be the
Yeah.
next product on the market, and if there is a fit to the market, then acquire the startup company. They probably have already equity in the company.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think there could be more in that sense, and but also there's a lots of work that big corporates do with partnering with research institutes as well to get that. So we're not downplaying innovation here at big corporates. So, looking back at your career though, and I started a lot of the first series asking this question to people. I think it's important to realize how and why people moved into the life science or the medical device industry, because you come from an engineering background, right? So
Yep.
why did you, there was a specific time in your life when you focused more on medical devices, when you were looking at more of a generalist engineering piece? So why did you make that conscious decision to move into this area?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question, and just to start with, I would say that I do believe that medical devices space is a specific industry in the sense that I do believe that everybody working in this field, it's so regulated, it's so constrained, it's so difficult. They have to have the patient in mind, the patient
Yeah,
benefit. So for myself, I did my engineering degree, and I started in surgical robotics with my internship prior to getting the degree. So I was in a generalist engineering training, and I could go to several heavy industries such as automotive or railway or whatever is big industry, but I never get much interested in the technology by itself, but interested in the technology to make a product for the customer. So, and
right, I
that's
see.
still my way of seeing things today. I mean, I don't really care to develop a very nice technology. I just care to develop something that is useful for the customer. And if it's a nice technology, then it's fine. But if
Yeah,
it's not a nice technology, that's okay.
yeah,
So I did this choice very early on, and I only applied to actually one internship that was in a research lab for a European-founded project in a teleoperated soft tissue robot, and I got
that's
the
good.
I
Yeah,
got the
one
job,
out.
and I started
Yeah,
there.
1 out of 1 hit rate. That's good.
Yep.
Just need one application, one internship.
Yeah, I never left since.
So, in your 20-year career, Lucien, what's the proudest product that you've worked on that's been released on the market? What's the proudest thing you've worked on?
Yeah. So first of all, I'm proud of all the products I've been working on. It's not only myself; it's the whole team. I'm not,
Yeah.
taking credit for all that is done. I would say the most system I'm proud of is the Rosa Brain system, because even today, when I see on LinkedIn or on newspapers a story of a 5-year-old child suffering from severe epilepsy, not being able to be medically treated in a good way, getting a SEEG procedure and being seizure free at the end. I mean, it's a tremendous impact on children's lives. So
Mm,
epilepsy is focused on mostly focused on children. So
yeah.
I would say that's where the impact of patient lives is the most important. So in the brain.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
I mean, I love all the products that I've done on the knee.
yeah,
So
you've got
yeah.
a very stellar portfolio.
Mhm.
So it's all completely relative, right? But for that, you were director or CTO of that project?
Yeah, for the Rosa Brain, actually I started at MedTech SA, which is the startup company founded by
Mm,
Bertin Naum in 2002. And I started as a lead software developer, actually. So I did a front-end software, back-end software, motion
wow.
control algorithm, low-level stuff that's really interesting anyway. It changed a lot since the last 2 decades. So I'm obviously very obsolete in terms of software technologies, but I do understand some stuff around software development. And I move on to quickly to product manager and then to R&D manager. At the time we started the Rosa Brain project, so it was a very small team at the time when we launched the Rosa
Mm,
Brain system in Europe. We were I think less than 10 people in the company. So there
wow.
is nothing to compare to current surgical robotics companies that are out there,
Yeah.
raising millions to
Hundreds of
develop
millions.
products. Yeah, but
Yeah.
also the landscapes change, and
Yeah.
the regulatory and quality requirements, they are much higher than what was before. So it's
Yeah.
in a way that it's normal.
So do you think the quality and the regulatory changes have had the biggest impact on the market?
Sorry, could you repeat
So
the question?
do you think the quality and the regulatory changes since you started in 2002 as a lead software engineer, do you think that's made the biggest changes in the landscape since then, or would you attest that to something else?
Yeah, I mean that's one of the big barriers in this industry. It's I mean right now you want to create a new company, and you plan to if you plan to be both in Europe and in the US, then you have to get a a very strong quality management system. You have to be very strong in regulatory. You have to start with all this in mind at the very beginning of the project, because if you do it afterwards, then it's very complex. So it requires much more investment in terms of skills and people, and product documentation and testing, and there's a lot more testing that is done right now, like around cybersecurity,
Yes.
usability testing. I mean it's a huge part of certifying a medical device right now. So I mean, that had a big impact on how much and how many people you need to create a new product. And then, I mean, there are many other changes in the perspective of the the end users, the surgeons, the physicians, how they
Mm.
perceive robotics. That change a lot, and obviously the technologies change a lot, and enable right now to do much more things that what we did before. Right now, today you have OEM technologies that you can assemble and make it into a product much more easily than what was before. When you took like virtual reality, augmented reality, you have glasses that are already compatible. You have tracking technologies. You have robotic arms that are specifically designed for medical devices. So
Yeah.
it's and it's a good thing. It's much easier right now.
Yeah, I see. Okay, so you the changes, when did they happen for the quality in the web? When were the big changes?
It's a
Was it slowly,
constant
or is it
increase. Yeah. I mean,
slowly?
I
I know
remember.
in the software piece, it was 2017 they've had a big change. But I don't know if it's just sort of slowly, incrementally crept up on you, let's say.
Yeah, I would say the first 510K I made was for the Bridget robot back in 2006, and it was when I look at it right now, it was a very small file. When we went to FDA for the Rosa Brain in 2009, it was still okay to manage, and then I think you're right. Like in the middle of 2015, something like that, it started to really increase the I would say the burden, but
Mm,
it's a
yeah,
required work to to properly design a product for safety and efficiency,
yeah,
and yeah, I mean, do not think that it's only useless certification. When you look at usability engineering, for instance, I truly believe it really improve. It forces manufacturers to really improve the ease of use of the product right from
yeah,
the beginning. So the framework is strong, but what we see right now with what we've done at Quantum Surgical is, in the end, it helps the manufacturer to really design a good product for the end users, and we've seen that with dozens of physicians who try the platform and say, hey, we really see you invested a lot in the user experience,
yeah,
and that pays off. So it's
yeah,
it's good for the end user and the patient at the end.
definitely. And if you, when you think about how what you're doing, the end is patient care, but actually the medium that you're um, increasing the patient care is the user, which is the radiologist or the surgeon. So that's kind of key, right, to making sure that the product is as successful as possible, um, in getting the best results for the patient at the end of the day. Um, so do you think um, that sort of change in importance on usability experience, do you think that affected the perception of robotics and technology within healthcare professionals? And if so, sort of what is been the major difference you've seen between when you went to market with the Rosa Brain tool versus what you're looking now with Quantum? What is the reception difference potentially?
Yeah, I think what changed the perspective of end users is really the increased adoption of different surgical robotic platforms across the surgical specialties. So, of course, the usability enables to do a more user-friendly product. But more than that, people started to see robots, in the operating room next door for urology, for gynecology. Then there is a surgeon that is using a robot for brain or spine, and he's discussing, with his colleague that is doing CMF or ENT, and they're like, start to discuss about robotics. So I think as we've seen more and more robots getting into the OR, then it fosters the idea that, okay, this, if my colleague right next to me is happy to use a robot to improve his patient outcomes, then maybe I can use it for my own specialty, and how I could use it, and how, where could I see
Yeah,
benefits. So I'm not specifically talking about the soft tissue teleoperated robots like the Da Vinci, because they've been there for so many
yeah.
years that
The newer ones, though.
yeah. But
Yeah.
for neurons, when you look at the surgical robotics landscape, uh, people think first Da Vinci, then Mako, and obviously those are the two big areas in general surgery and orthopedics. And maybe right now with Siemens, the cardiovascular catheter steering robots. There is Auris in bronchoscopy, but there are 94 other companies commercializing or developing a robot out there, and in almost all areas in therapeutic space, I would say, because right now there is the frontier between diagnostic and therapeutic, and between surgical specialties is getting more blurry. So you
Mm,
can see that's why I speak about medical robotics, because it's not always only surgery. I mean, you can
yeah.
have treatments like histotripsy in the liver, or hair restoration, or venipuncture, or whatever, which is not surgery, but it's a robot for providing a medical treatment.
Yeah, no, for sure. Definitely and it's the people that we speak to across Europe, device wise, it's becoming blurry and blurry, even not in robotics, but even like a device itself, the diagnostics and therapeutics is almost becoming like a wraparound in itself, for a certain piece. But you alluded to the landscape of um, surgical robotics across the world, and sort of the different needs and different areas of which robots are currently being utilized. So I've got a 2-point question, if I may, moving on to quantum. First of all, why did you think, right, let's start again almost? And two, how and why did you choose the certain use case for the surgical robot?
Yeah, I mean that's the right question. Everybody should ask himself, and for other the why question.
Yeah, 100%.
Why are you doing that? So basically, we left Zimmer Biomet after having transitioned to a new management team that was more fit to address big corporate challenges,
Yeah.
and we took something like 9 months to research the surgical robotics fields, surgery fields, to try to find this equation where robotics could address an unmet need to leverage minimally invasive technique, and with a clinically proven solution. So that's really the equation we found in Rosa Brain for epilepsy, and that was also the success of the Da Vinci in a laparoscopy, basically providing an enabling technology for physician to perform minimally invasive treatments, and in an efficient way. So we did a lot of research, and then we came out to this field of liver cancer, and we found that there were not many things happening in robotics and navigation in this field, and still people we were discussing with had a strong unmet needs on, it's a difficult technique when you try to insert a needle, an ablation needle, into the abdomen percutaneously. That means you don't see anything, and you just have to rely on images that you see on the screen, and for CT guided procedure that they have been performed maybe the day before, or just at the beginning of the
Mm,
intervention, and anything moves, and it's really difficult. I mean, it requires skills, it requires a learning curve, and you have to place the ablation needle at the right place to really cover the whole tumor and avoid local cancer recurrence. So that's how we found what we call a sweet spot for robotics. That is liver cancer, and specifically percutaneous treatment of liver cancer. And we started really operating the company is in July 2017. So 4 years ago, hiring the first software guy to start developing the product.
Awesome. Okay, so just so I can put it to, like, I don't know, layman's terms, it's a very the procedure is very, very tricky. So the surgeon would have to almost go blind, but use some sort of, I don't know, optical camera or high resolution camera that's in the needle, perhaps go into the liver, but also specify where the tumor is, because you've got to be very accurate in case, to make sure that when you've done the surgery there isn't a recurrence of tumors. But also the images that perhaps are on the screen and they're using to pre-plan the surgery are not done live. Obviously, they're done the day before or previously. And as we know from Sidar Medical in their episode with Rob Haig in series 1, they have like a surgical imaging solution. And their sort of unmet need was the fact that people's internal organs tend to move. they're not very stationary, and that can be a very big challenge for the surgeon. So I guess you found that the sweet spot in the robotics piece, because it's a very tricky surgery to do as a human being. And this is where the sensors and the robotics and the navigation can be done. So for your product though, is it fully autonomous or is it guided by the surgeon externally? How does it exactly work and fit in?
Yeah, right. So no, it's not autonomous. It's a robot, but it's mainly an assistant to the physician. And actually, the procedure is done under imaging, so it's either CT or ultrasound. But it's still difficult under image guidance to really know where you are, where is the needle, where is the tumor. Sometimes you don't see the tumor, sometimes you don't really see well the whole needle. So it's still a difficult procedure, especially when you do have to treat large tumors or tumors close to vessels or the bile duct. Then you have to be very careful. If you implant multi needles, then it's difficult. So our product is basically used during the 3 phases. So the first one is planning the intervention. So what we bring is a piece of software that enables to load images, either diagnostic or pre-interventional images, to do what we call multimodal planning, is using the benefits from MR, CT, and to really see where is the tumor, what's going to be the needle path, and secure the ablation parameters to say, okay, how I am going to set the ablation generator to make sure that the whole tumor is destroyed. So once you've done the plan, then you move on to the guidance phase, where the robot will automatically position the needle guide according to the patient's position, and that's where we do have a tracking technology and also a proprietary respiratory monitoring module, because as you said, internally things are moving, and the liver movement is not really what you think it is. And when you breathe, then the liver moves in both directions, and so you have to take into account the patient breathing when you install the needle. So we have this guidance phase, and basically our paradigm at MedTech and at Quantum Surgical is we want to leave the physician in control of the final gesture. We do believe that, I mean, it could be automated, but that's going to be the next step. First, at least in this IO field, interventional oncology, there is not much robotics. So the first step is just, introducing a planning software, introducing a robot, and once the product is adopted, when the technology is adopted by the community, then we can think about the next step that could be automation, and maybe not. Maybe the feedbacks from the market, feedbacks from
Yeah.
the customer will be, hey, I'm fine doing it myself, and I'd rather do it myself because like I feel when I puncture the liver capsule, I know where I am.
Yeah.
When they insert the needle into the tumor, they can feel stuff. And so
Yeah.
if you automate this, then you remove all the feedback.
The touch. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. Awesome. So, um, with I'm really intrigued by the guidance and navigation piece. So how does that work? Do you have sensors at the end of it, and sort of what challenges did you find with that specific part of the robotic arm?
yeah, well, on the robotic side, I mean, we've been doing this for quite a few times, so there is not much challenges. I mean, the challenges here is it's a soft tissue and it's moving and it's breathing. So, what we did is we combine a robotic device with a navigation technology and also this software that analyzes the patient motion. So, what the physician does is he places what we call a reference on the patient's abdomen, and the tracking technology will analyze all the movement of this small part,
Oh
and
wow.
then determine what's the respiratory cycle of the patient. It will display the respiratory curve, pretty much like a respiratory monitoring, but not in the same intent. And then we can synchronize, the phases of the respiratory cycle between image acquisition, that's where you plan your intervention,
Mm.
and needle insertion, that's where you insert the needle. So it's
Oh wow.
yeah, I mean, it's been a challenge because it's not that easy, and we've tried different technologies, and we've tried different algorithm, and we tested it on preclinical testing to make sure that every this feature is really reproducible to below the millimeter. So
Mm.
what we demonstrated on pigs is that we are able to synchronize the patient motion to make sure that the liver and the tumor within the liver is at the same place, very same place, at less than 1 millimeter with this technique.
Oh, awesome. So you have a system that sits on the abdomen, and then your software will learn the cycle, like you said, the breathing cycle and the movement of the internal organs effectively there, for the when the needle's going in, it's to the same picture or environment that you've had the CT acquisition for the pre-planning stage. So
Exactly.
that image becomes much more usable, let's say. And that's fascinating. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, because
Um, go on.
yeah, because when you are in like in cranial neurosurgery, you have your head is within a skull clamp, so it doesn't
Right.
move. So you took the CT scan and then you operate with the same image.
Yeah.
And if the brain doesn't move, then you can keep the same image. But in the liver, you have to figure this out.
And that's awesome. Is that something that's just from on this robot, or is this something that you've done previously as well? How did you sort of, or if it's been done in the market, or is this a new thing that you guys thought about connecting it all together?
So this piece of respiratory monitoring analysis, yeah. So basically, I've been in this field for 20 years, and people always think they are innovating in their own space, but right next door, in another therapeutic space, they've done it for a couple of years prior to us. So what we did is it's the same issue the radiotherapy is facing right now. I mean, they are treating with a beam a tumor within a moving organ, and what they've done is that they have similar devices, but they implement it in a different way because it's not the same environment, and there is no operator and stuff like that. But what we did is we just looked at, okay, where is the same therapeutic space that has the same issues, and how did they fix it, and how we can adapt it to our own needs. I mean,
Mm.
if an issue has been solved for 10 or 15 years. There's you know
Probably going to work.
yeah.
So that's great. That's awesome. And where are Quantum now? You said at the preamble there that you're looking at the Chinese market and the European and the American market. So um, paint the landscape of what you guys have achieved in the last 4 years, as you said, once you started.
Yeah, it's been quite a tremendously learning journey this past 4 years. So basically, we did the full product development cycle from the early on blank sheet of paper until prototyping, preclinical testing. We did a multicentric clinical study. We did also regulatory filing. So usability studies. We've done all, and we closed that last year, and we filed for CE marking. And I mean, we're recording it's July, and I do hope that by the day this episode will be broadcasted, we will have already disclosed a lot of good news
Yeah.
on the regulatory side. So we intend basically to address Europe, US, and Chinese market at the same time in 2022.
Wow.
And that's a big challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing we discussed earlier about supply chain and everything like that from a startup. Then I guess you're in now that position where you've innovated, and now you're going to be going into three different markets, the three biggest markets in the world. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean that's so obviously. I mean we've thought about that, and I
Yeah.
mean in Europe we know how to do this. In the
Yeah.
US,
Yeah.
we will settle a US branch very soon to set up a team that will do that. And in China, we've done a joint venture with a local partner that is
Oh,
called
bro.
LifeTech Scientific, and we're working with them right now to get into the NMPA clearance and preparing the product for the market. So, yeah, I mean, but it's on the regulatory side and on the product side, it's still quite a big challenge. But you
Yeah.
have to think big.
Yeah.
When we've said at the beginning, it's the surgical robotics market is blooming. I mean,
Mm.
there are a lot of things happening, and you have to be, there is no time to waste.
Absolutely.
If you believe there is a value for your product, and if you convince clinical partners, financial partners, then you have to go for it. And to go for it, you have to address the three markets: Europe, uh, US, and China, and
Yeah.
if possible at the same time. That's what we're targeting.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, hopefully, it's very successful. With the background that you have in Europe and history you have in America, I can't see why not. And if you've partnered with that local company in China to help you ascertain the expertise in that market, I'm sure it'll be a great success. But just finally, I wanted to touch on, because it is, as you say, it's a booming market at the moment, surgical robotics. I'm sure everyone's heard about the funding of CMR for their Series D.
Impressive.
It's very impressive. So where do you see the trends looking at now? And also just to put into that, where do you see other industries using robotics or autonomy that our industry could really harness as well, and look to them as like that's something that we could look to achieve, or some of the technologies they're using we could move into our space as well?
All right, so that's a tough question. Well, I would say I've I've been asked the question, where does surgical robotics goes quite a couple of times, and actually there is no one surgical robotics market. There are
Mm,
obviously there is a big market, which is the one like for Da Vinci, the CMR, the Medtronic Hugo, the J&J Ottawa, and all the other people, and that's really good for customers and patients, that there is competition coming, and they will have a choice, and there will be different approaches, including a hybrid one from Dexter, and that will be good for. This is one market, and then there's a lot of other markets in bone, in
yeah,
orthopedics and stuff like that. But the trend, I would say there are a lot of technologies that are out there and that start to entering the surgical robotic space, that everything that's around digital. You can see Intuitive and J&J going into pre-surgical planning. When you start
Mm,
doing pre-surgical planning, then you have a massive amount of data, and you have a lot of capabilities to process this data to improve what you are going to execute during the surgery. So everything around pre-surgical planning, all the smart sensors in orthopedics, they will provide data for gap balancing, stuff like that, that will feed the robot to enable to do better and provide better patient outcomes. And also, we've seen that in orthopedics, there is the post-op phase, and everybody's thinking, the surgery day, but well, yeah, I mean, the patient, they have to live with the result of the surgery for weeks or months, or maybe more, and
mm,
there are also stuff to do. Smith and Nephew, they went into this field, Zimmer Biomet also, and there is also a lot of data. So pre-op, intra-op, post-op, there is a lot of data, and it's a digital ecosystem that the manufacturers will have to build to be able to get this data first through other devices or their own devices, and then to process the data. And that's where AI obviously can play a role, because there will be massive amounts of data. So only AI
mm,
can process this to do some intelligent analytics and provide the manufacturer, the hospital, the surgeon with valuable insights on what you've done and what's the result of what you've done, and what you should do differently for the next time.
yeah,
And so everything around digital, I'm a big fan of all the systems like
yeah,
teleprocedural, telemedicine, telehealth,
yeah,
tele
yeah,
stuff
yeah,
like that. It's been
yeah,
uh, really really strong during the COVID pandemic situation.
yeah,
And I think, well, I hope that the surgeon will get accustomed to this kind of
mm,
technologies, because it really helps to leverage the knowledge, the clinical knowledge, towards the manufacturer for post-market, for product development,
yeah,
towards the peers in the community, towards people who want to train. So I do believe there will be some synergies at some point between
for
a
sure.
complex medical device that is a robot and
Yeah,
telehealth system. And then you have
abs-
everything that's around augmented reality, virtual
yes,
reality. That's
yeah, it's crazy as well.
that that's uh
It's
that's something that it's coming, and there is no
yeah,
doubt it's gonna play a strong role in our field. What's gonna be the role where, but there will be benefit for sure, and there is
yeah,
a lot of stuff to do around there.
yeah, absolutely. I think what's interesting there that I picked up with what you're saying, it seems like the more companies like yourselves innovate and basically create more sensors into the surgical or just the healthcare settings, right? It doesn't have to be robotics. It can be um, imaging diagnostic systems or such. It creates more data, and there's going to be a need to sort of analyze that data and connect the dots almost for the healthcare professionals to increase the patient quality of care, to increase the effectiveness of decision making and such as well. So it's almost like a snowball going down a mountain. The more that you innovate, the more that needs to innovate around it and the data, and so it's just going to be a massive sort of snowball, I feel, which is super exciting. And people like yourself, Lucien, in the industry, how active you are and how much of an advocate you are for this kind of work and this kind of stuff is fantastic, and only benefits everyone, and at the end of the day, the patients, which is super cool. But this has been very exciting. I could probably speak to you all day, but I know that you're a very busy person. So we'll leave it there for now. But thank you very much for coming on and being the first guest of Series 2. I don't know if there are people wanting to follow up with you. What's the best way to get in touch with you? I know you're quite active anyway as an influencer, as I said in the
Yeah.
start.
Yeah, well, I try to educate the community the best I can. So any feedback are welcome anyway. So you can connect me through LinkedIn, Lucien Blondel, and you can also connect to Quantum Surgical LinkedIn profile. These two things are okay. So
Awesome. And hopefully by the time this comes out, it's in line with some of the, we'll just talk about offline, just some of the things that potentially could be coming out of the woodwork in the news. So hopefully it'll be a successful time for you and a successful end of the year. And everyone needs to be looking out for your 3-pronged attack for quantum surgical across the world.
Thank you very much, Nick.
With the
It was
robotics.
great.
Bye bye.
Bye.